Good evening. Welcome, everyone. This is the Marion City Council meeting for Thursday, July 20th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Mr. Draper.
Here.
Ms. Etzel. Present. Mr. Spinks.
Present.
Mayor Abowasley.
Here.
Mr. Brandt.
Here.
Mr. Nicholson. Ms. Pazor.
Here.
Thank you. This time we have a moment of silence. Thank you. Just a housekeeping item. If I know we have people here who want to address the council tonight. If you intend to address the council, please fill out one of these cards to give us your name and address. When you approach the podium, please state your name and address also. This meeting is recorded, and so people do listen to it. If you want to address the council on something that is on the agenda, please hold off until we get to that item, okay? Such as the Tower Terrace Road matter, I think. So we'll take public comments at that public hearing, okay? So is there anyone here to address the council on anything that's not an agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed.
Okay, Your Honor, I have the consent calendar. And it's items 1 through 30 on the printed agenda, and it includes resolution 26-185 through resolution 26-199. Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar, including items 1 through 30, resolutions numbers 26185 through 26199. Discussion?
Yeah, I have a question, Your Honor. Number 23.
Yes.
Amanda, I think this might be for you. Accepting the art installation and approving final payments for the Uptown Artway. What's the final payment? I don't remember seeing anything about this in our packet.
It should be in the resolution. I believe it was $865, but let me just double check.
That was the final payment?
It was for the installation. That's the gateway feature off of 11th Street. I can confirm that in just 1 second.
It's not specified in the resolution.
It is $845.
For the 11th Street. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And then that'd be the final for all art.
There are still a few more. We hold the final payment of 5% back for 6 months after installation, and a few of them were installed a little bit later, so we're waiting on those final invoices to process those through council.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, I do have a question about number 18, which is a motion to receive and file correspondence. I have another piece of correspondence from Brad Neely concerning the same thing, which has not been placed to be received and filed, but I would like to include this in the consent calendar.
Okay. You can do that? Okay, so do we need to do anything special to include that? Should we receive and file it after we accept the
Go ahead and act on the consent
Yeah.
calendar and then do a separate motion to receive and
Let's do
file
that.
this.
Okay,
Okay.
so do you want a separate motion after we
After we
vote on this?
vote,
Okay,
yes.
that's fine.
Other discussion on the consent calendar? Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent calendar, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Your Honor, I move to receive and file a memorandum from Brad Neely, received by email, and it's regarding the upcoming public hearing, which is tonight, about Tower Terrace Road.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to receive and file correspondence from Brad Neely. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. I'll hand the gavel over to Mayor Pro Tem for this next one.
Yes, Your Honor, I have a motion to approve the consent calendar with Mayor Abu Asley abstaining from voting and discussion regarding the following items as presented. Motion to approve project calendar regarding engineering department, which is a resolution 26-200, resolution 26-201, and resolution 26-203, resolution 26-204, and 26-205.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on any of these items? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, under finance, we have a public hearing on a proposal to enter into an essential purpose loan agreement. Anybody want to describe that? Or?
There's actually several public hearings in a row here that are
I'll
all
just talk
related.
about them all at the same time.
We'll go through them one by one, but I'll just
Yeah.
give a brief description on all of them. And the city has planned borrowing for this fiscal year. It was budgeted for, and so we are entering into loan agreements for and doing the public hearing to allow the council to proceed with that bonding schedule. This includes activities that are in the capital projects budget for this year and in the capital improvement program. We've actually split this bond issue to do part of it this calendar year and part of it next calendar year so we get the best interest rates. On the advice of our bond counsel, we actually split these into different categories because some of them fall into the category of essential corporate purpose and some of them fall into the category of general corporate purpose, hence the reason that we have all the different public hearings on here. But the first one would include activities like road reconstruction, maintenance of existing city facilities, and other physical infrastructure projects. Then we have a public hearing on a cooperative project between us and Marion Independent to build new tennis courts on the south side of the community. And then the next three are all related to local match for grant funds that we're receiving from the Quarter Metropolitan Planning Organization for planned trail extension projects. But all of these are budgeted. We're just doing them over a series to maximize the city's interest rate benefit.
Okay, so the public hearing on the proposal to enter into an essential purpose loan agreement is now open. Is there anyone to address the council in favor of this matter? Anyone opposed? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, next is a public hearing regarding the proposal to enter into the facilities loan agreement. Public hearing is open. Anyone to address the council in favor? Anyone opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Okay, next is the public hearing regarding a proposal to enter into the tennis court loan agreement. the project with Marion Independent School District. The public hearing is open. Anyone to address the council in favor of this? Anyone opposed? Okay, the public hearing is not closed. Next is the public hearing regarding proposal to enter into the Grantwood Trail Loan Agreement. Public hearing is now open. Anyone here to address the council in favor of this matter? Anyone opposed? Okay, public hearing is now closed. Next is number 5, public hearing regarding a proposal to enter into a CMAR Trail Loan Agreement. Public hearing is now open. Anyone here in support of this matter? Anyone opposed? Public hearing is not closed. And number 6, the public hearing regarding a proposal to enter into an Indian Creek Trail Loan Agreement. Anyone here to address the council in support of this matter? Oh, public hearing is open. Anyone here in support? Okay, anyone opposed? The public hearing is closed. Is that so?
Yes, Your Honor. I make a motion to approve resolution number 26206, taking additional action to enter into a general obligation corporate purpose loan agreement, setting the date for the sale of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2017A, and authorizing the use of preliminary official statement in connection therewith.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26206, taking additional action to enter into a general obligation corporate purpose loan agreement, setting the date for the sale of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2017A, and authorizing the use of a preliminary official statement in connection therewith. Discussion?
I would just like to mention, aren't we saving like $200,000 in interest by doing this?
Yeah, with the when the city issues bonds, unlike a private mortgage or something like that, they issue the bonds in a series of certificates. So it's almost like a series of individual loans. And typically what you see is the ones that are nearer term carry more attractive interest rates, and as they get a little bit further out, the interest rates will escalate. These were ones that were issued from prior debt issuances that the city did, but the interest rate environment right now is so favorable that we can go out and refinance these, keep them on the same repayment term, and expect to save, depending on what the quotes come in at, between $200,000 and $300,000 in interest over the remaining 4 years of the life of the loan.
Okay.
And you said the trail ones were a matched, those are a matched fund, are all of them that way?
Yeah, we've got around $10 million worth of funding from the CMPO that's going to be coming into Marion over the next 3 to 4 years for trails projects. Overall, that requires a minimum of a 20% local match in order to receive those funds. So it really leverages a lot of additional funding for the city.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions or discussion? Okay. All those in favor of resolution number 26206, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. We have another public hearing regarding proposal to enter into a general obligation refunding loan agreement. Would you like to describe that? Or?
Yeah, this is the one that actually is the refunding that Councilwoman Etzel was referring to. This is the one that refinances about 4 years' worth of remaining debt on a prior bond.
Okay. The public hearing is now open. Is there anyone here to address the council in support of this measure? Anyone opposed? The public hearing is now closed.
Yes, Your Honor. I move to approve resolution number 26207, taking additional action with respect to the general obligation refunding loan agreement.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26207, taking additional action with respect to a general obligation refunding loan agreement. Discussion? Okay. All those in favor of resolution number 26207, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. We have another public hearing regarding the 2017 31st Street Rehabilitation Project. Dan, is this you?
Thank you, Your Honor. We did receive bids for the project in July of 2017, July 11th, excuse me. This project is a rehabilitation full depth and grinding project between First Avenue and Third Avenue. We did receive 5 bids. The lowest bid was from Eastern Iowa Excavating and Concrete at $134,987.99, or about 89% of estimate. So we did get a good bid there. Work will begin no later than September 11th and have 20 working days. We do have liquidated damages, and we are recommending the award.
Okay, the public hearing is now open on this measure. Anyone here to address the council in support of this measure? Is there anyone opposed? Okay, the public hearing is not closed. Mr. Brandt?
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 26208, accepting bids and awarding contract to Eastern Iowa Excavating and Concrete LLC regarding the 2017 31st Street Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $134,987.99.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26208, accepting bids and awarding contract to Eastern Iowa Excavating and Concrete LLC for the 2017 31st Street Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $134,987.99. Discussion.
I guess I have one question for parks. Is the ball games, baseball fields, will they be done playing there by that time?
Yes, they will, Joe.
Okay, so it won't affect that.
No, their season is completed.
Thank you.
I have a question. Now, I've been told that the ramps to 31st Street from 4th Avenue, 3rd Avenue, 2nd Avenue are not there anymore. It's been completely eliminated.
We have had a policy for many years that was supported by council, I don't want to say maybe 10 years ago, maybe even longer, that at T intersections we're no longer providing access across those T intersections, but down the street to full intersections. This allows for us to eliminate some of the crossings that have to become ADA compliant. It allows us to eliminate trouble spots and keeps us from putting ramps in front yards, the middle of front yards, and so forth. So this was something that council approved many years ago.
Oh, I had a question from a neighbor and said, why not? They were there before, and
Yeah, we only put ramps in on all 4 corners when there are 4 legs to the intersection.
thank you.
Okay. Other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of resolution number 26208, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Your Honor, I move to approve Resolution 26209, authorizing the submittal of an application for Traffic Safety Improvement Program, TSIP, funding for the intersection of U.S. Highway 13 and Hennessy Parkway to convert the two-way stop-controlled intersection to traffic signals with turn lanes.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26209, authorizing the submittal of an application for Traffic Safety Improvement Program funding for the intersection of US Highway 13 and Hennessy Parkway to convert the two-way stop-controlled intersection to traffic signals with turn lanes. Discussion?
Your Honor, this mainly is approving an application for the funding that would allow us to partially fund the intersection signalization at Hennessy, which would the Culver's intersection, in conjunction with the development that's going on the east side.
Okay.
What percentage of funding do you think we'll get?
I think the agreement with the developer is that they'll pay any remaining amount, if I am correct. So it's 20%, I think. TSIP pays 100%, but I'm not sure in this case they will do that based on funding.
Okay.
Further discussion? All those in favor of resolution number 26209, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, now turn the gavel over to Mayor Pro Tem for the next couple items.
Open a public hearing regarding the 2017 Lucor Road Reconstruction Project. Would you give a...
I do, Your Honor, and before I forget, we are having some challenges with the easement with this project, so we'd like to table this tonight until the next meeting. However, on July 11th, we did receive 5 sealed bids, 5 good bids. The low bid was from Abode Construction for $1.493875.25%, or dollars, excuse me, 1.4 million, at about 85% of engineer's estimate. Work will begin no later than August 14th, which will follow the opening of Winslow Road, so there will not be a conflict with traffic. Will be completed in 145 working days, which means the later phases will go into 2018. We do have a liquidated damage fee of $750 a day, so it will be fairly stiff if they go over. But we will do the award. We would hope to do the other award at the next meeting.
So do you want to table the public hearing as well?
No, we can go ahead and do the public hearing and then do the award next meeting.
So the next one we want to table?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Okay, the public hearing is for the Lucor Road construction. Anyone want to speak in favor of this project? Anyone want to speak again? Oh, you got a favorable?
Good evening. My name is Michael Reinhardt. I live at 4409 Lucor Road. Our property is a small horse acreage. You probably recognize it. It's where the Indian Creek crosses Lucor Road. We have been there about 11 years and have had 3 flash floods in that time period. So we're very sensitive to the water flow that goes in and around our property. On Wednesday, we were informed that at the south end of the project, the Lucor reconstruction, there will be a new 36-inch pipe storm water outlet placed. We hadn't heard about that beforehand, and it would also require an easement agreement. Contacted Seth, the project manager, as well as David, and they've been extremely helpful in providing information. But what became apparent was the study that had been done had a lot to do with capacity collection and dumping, but not necessarily anything to do with the water flow of the creek and how it might impact the property, because our property is directly across from where this pipe would be. So we would, and there's a secondary concern as well from bank erosion, because our barn sits not far from the bank. So my request or statement or comment tonight would be that as this project proceeds, that ample resources get allocated such that an assessment can be made as to what would be the impact, if any, on the property relative to increased flooding, and also to allow any additional design changes or mitigation remedies if identified. Enough time for those to occur.
I think we're right in the middle of platting that whole area right now. Have we approved all of that?
My staff, me and ultimately, made a poor assumption in that we needed about 5 feet to get across their property. to get to Indian Creek, and we thought that would be a somewhat easy one, but we really made a poor assumption, I guess, that we needed to provide them more contact and more information. So we have directed them to another engineering firm to get a second opinion on what we are doing and what we're providing. We do have options of what we're doing, but they're significantly higher costs. So we would like to work through this process if possible. If not, we do have options to modify the project to allow us to go around their property. So,
Okay,
Great.
all right.
And thank you, Dan, for
thank you.
being accommodating.
And you're on the east side of Lucor?
We're on the east side of the Lucor.
Right at the creek, okay.
Right.
They own, excuse me, they own east of the bridge. They own both northeast of the bridge and southeast of the bridge. So what we're doing is trying to bring in the storm sewer from the street on the northeast corner of the bridge.
Okay, well, thank you for your
All right,
input.
thank you.
Any others speaking for or against this project or want more information? Seeing none, public hearing is closed, and from what I understand, we will
Your
table
Honor,
number.
I would move we table 26-210 until our August 3rd meeting.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the tabling? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, at this time, we have a public hearing regarding the request to amend Ordinance 13-14 of the Marion Code of Ordinances regarding the hours of operation for property located along Tower Terrace Road, west of 10th Street, and east of Irish Drive. We have a presentation on this.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. As the Council is aware, the public hearing this evening is relating to the hours of operation and the commercial zoning along Tower Terrace Road, specifically between 10th Street and Alburnett Road. What I'd like to do is just provide a little background for those in attendance tonight. I think there's quite a few people that like to speak on the topic, so I think having a little history might be good. Just briefly why we're here, the City Council reviewed the ordinance, directed staff to go back and take a look at how the zoning was established out here, and specifically the hours of operation. The Council's desire to have that reviewed specifically goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed it and has sent a recommendation. Before I get into that, I'd like to just do a little historical on what's been going out on Tower Terrace Road. So the area that's identified in red is Zone C3 currently. 10th Street here, Tower Terrace Road extends to the west, Alburnett Road, the roundabout here. The red, or the green is A1, which is a rural restricted use, so generally it's either farm ground or large lot acreage development. The blue is O1, permits light office, some light retail, but not a whole lot. And that zoning both in this vicinity, or this vicinity has been there for over 16 years. As you can see, even ground has been platted around it, and it doesn't really match some of the lot lines. The area here further east was rezoned in the mid-2000s, and I'll get into that, as O1. Clearly, east of here, we have Excelsior School, the stadium, and Linmore High School to the south. The red is commercial zoning. It's all currently zoned commercial. C3 with some limitations. The PDC piece is the ESCO Electric, or ESCO company. The property was originally rezoned from A1 to PDC in January of 2003. At that time, the PDC limited the uses. One of the reasons we went to a planned development commercial was because we wanted to make sure that there was some review that went in when a project came forward, and we also wanted to restrict some of the uses within the commercial district. As many of you have heard me say and understand, and maybe not so many people in the audience understand this, our zoning ordinance is quite old. Our C3 district is highway commercial for all intents and purposes. Used car lots, large lot, large commercial development, open storage, new car lots. A lot of what you would see along 7th Avenue that developed in the 60s and 70s, that area is all zone C3. And clearly, when we got into Tower Terrace Road, we wanted to see some limitations in that area. When the PDC came forward, we limited the uses in that area to the C1 and the C2 zoning district classification. C1 being neighborhood commercial, C2 being the uptown commercial district, as we see out the front door here. So that property was zoned at that time as PDC. There's a couple projects that came forward. Primarily here on the south side of Barrington, there were a couple projects that came forward. The Mac Express, the daycare's out there. On the north side, there was a desire for a clinic, and so that was rezoned to O1 in 2004. And I don't think there were any issues when the clinic went in, nor any of the commercial that went in as a part of the PDC. In 2013, there was a request to rezone from PDC to C3. The biggest change from PDC to C3 is that it takes away the requirement that there be preliminary and site development plans submitted to the Planning Commission and City Council for review. On tonight's agenda, there's two final site development plans for review. One's the DePaco, and it's a very detailed site plan, has elevations, renderings, and is very detailed as to what's being built, how it's going to impact neighbors, and it just provides an opportunity for everybody to see what's going on. One of the problems that comes with that is that it is a little bit longer process, a little bit tedious, and the developer wanted to bring it forward and ask that instead of having to go through that, that it would just be reviewed internally by staff. There were design standards established within the PDC. Mr. Mooney and Dan Engel, the Mooney Engel Development Company, they're the ones that were bringing him forward, and we had several buildings to look at, and I think there was some comfort level in what kind of design standards and design criteria were being established at that point. There was a public hearing, which I think some people in the audience, maybe a majority of them, were here when that occurred, and that did get approved. So we went from a planned development district to a general commercial district. For all intents and purposes, the uses were very similar when that occurred. As the council's aware, in 2014, there was a request by I guess I'll back up a little bit. When the C3 went in, the conversation on hours of operation really came to light. And the issue that was basically established was that within the C1 zoning district classification, there's a limitation on the hours of operation. They can't be open past 11 o'clock, 7 days a week. When we started looking at that, the concession on that was that there would be a conditional use permit required if a business wanted to be open past 11 o'clock. So if I wanted to open any business past 11, I would come in and I would solicit the city for a conditional use permit. That would be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and then ultimately go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for review and for final consideration. Just for a conversation, the Zoning Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board, and when they rule, when they make a decision, it's not appealable to the City Council. It goes directly to District Court. So it's a pretty, that board has a lot of power in how they operate. So we had our first request for an extension of the hours of operation in 2014. Restaurant came in that served alcohol, made a proposal. They wanted to be open later. There was a public hearing at the Planning Commission. It was forwarded to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and that request was denied. Since that time, there's been folks that have wanted to open restaurants out there. Two that I'm aware of, and a coffee shop. Those individuals that are wanting to do that, or to enter into those development agreements, or to do that development, have chose not to move forward based on the conditional use permitting process. There's a lot of investment up front, and they have to go through the process, so they've just chose not to do That was what was brought forward to the city council I think it was in May, just asking that we take a look at that. Council direct us to open a public hearing at the Planning Commission and have that situation reviewed. On June 13, 2017, so last month, the Planning Commission held a public hearing regarding the hours of operation in this area. There were a number of folks in attendance. I think 7 folks from the community spoke against doing anything to change the way the situation exists. And there were probably 15 to 20 people in attendance at the meeting. Ultimately, the Planning Commission did make a recommendation to amend the zoning district classification and provide a basically or essentially taking away the hours of operation and restrictions for a portion of the property. And I don't know how many people in the audience are aware that the Planning Commission's recommendation is only for the restriction to be released between Irish Drive and 3rd Ave, and then essentially from this point west. I'm sorry, 3rd Street, correct. So this is the area that the Planning Commission has recommended that the hours of operation restrictions be lifted. I'd like to just talk a little bit about what the zoning of the C1, C2, C3. I don't know how many people fully understand what those zoning classifications include. When we were looking at this, like I explained earlier, the C3 zoning district classifications, and they're pretty heavy uses, everything from automobile service stations to boat and camper, heavy implement dealerships, building services and supply stores, lumber yards, restaurants, taverns, cocktail lounges. I know our definitions are not stellar considering the day and age, but that's just how our zoning ordinance reads. Veterinarian clinics, and it includes drive-in theaters. Taxidermist establishments, and a number of other uses, but most of them are pretty heavy uses, and obviously I don't think anybody really wanted to see those types of uses out on Tower Terrace Road. That being said, if you look at the zoning district classifications that we would probably like to see out there, the C1 and C2 do support those. Unfortunately, the C2 uses are also tied to C2 setbacks and performance standards as far as how property gets developed. In the C2 districts, there's no parking standards, so you can imagine if we implemented C2 out on Tower Terrace Road and there's no parking requirements. So, and the C1 had limitations on hours of operations and also had limitations on the serving of liquor and alcohol, period. So if you wanted a restaurant, which I don't think anybody would deny a desire to have a restaurant on Tower Terrace Road, there aren't many that are opened that do not serve alcohol. I'm not saying I'm for or against that, but I'm just saying that that's just the reality of it. Whether it's an Applebee's, a Buffalo Wild Wings, or a Zeppelin's, most of them serve alcohol if you're an evening venue for dinner. So we were trying to work through our current code to come up with a district that would work within the parameters and the desirability that we thought the community would accept. So that's where we went to a C3 zoning district that was consistent with the C1 and C2 uses. I know that is probably not the best way to do it, but at the time we didn't have a lot of options, and that's how we went forward with it. And I think it's important to note when that happened, we always go with the most restrictive district standards, which in this case restricted the hours of operation. The C2 has no restriction. The C1 does have hours of operation. So that's where within the zoning code the hours of operation limitations come from. It's from the C1 district classification. So I think the big thing that I'm going to make an assumption that the big thing on everybody's mind this evening is precisely the bar, the restaurant, the serving of alcohol, and the hours that a Friday and Saturday, or for that matter during the week, that could be impacting to the neighborhood. So that's what's been the issue, I guess, more than anything out here is the bar restaurant situation. The city of Marion does have definitions. Essentially, a restaurant would be permitted to sell alcohol. It would be classified a restaurant if the gross sales in 1 year are over 50% food. A bar would be something that does not serve food or has less than 50% sales. There are some restrictions that come if you open a bar. You have to be so many feet from a school, church. I think those are the two primary uses that we restrict from. I will say in this area, and what we've done in the past is we've identified daycares as a school, so there would be a setback restriction here for a bar. A restaurant would still be allowed to be within, I think it's within 200 feet of a school. That's a lot of background. I know I just gave you a lot of information. I hope it was helpful. I think what's important at this point is to just relay to the council. If you want to see the zoning map, we can look at that, but I think this helps a lot, is just to recognize the area from an aerial photograph. Tower Terrace Road, 10th Street, extending to the west, ESCO Group. This area highlighted in red is where the Planning Commission has recommended that the hours of operation restriction be lifted. Are there any questions from the council for me?
If I understand it correctly, the current zoning is really C1, C2 uses with the parking and setback
requirements
or allowances under C3.
That's correct.
That's really what it is?
There were, I guess, just to further clarify, there were some restrictions on uses north of Tower Terrace Road in this vicinity, limiting the cocktail lounges and restaurants east of the extension of 3rd.
So C1 and C2 permit generally what types of uses?
Oh, the C1, C2?
Yeah.
Most retail establishments. So the C1, just for context too, I think this is important. Beginning in about 2000, I think is about the time we had our first request for commercial zoning north of 10th Avenue. The corner of 29th and 10th Street was the first commercial zoning that we did have north of 10th Avenue, which was, I mean, for a community our size, that was a long time with no commercial activity. But that was the first commercial that we had. A C1, which is what we would consider those small nodes, would include retail businesses, shoe stores, bakeries, camera shops, candy stores, ice cream stores, drug stores, pharmacies, needlecraft shops, floral shops, general merchandise sales, which would basically be a convenience store without the sale of gasoline, grocery and food stores, jewelry stores. So more of your small, what you would think of are more of a small shops, not necessarily large. It does say grocery and food stores, which can be quite large. I would venture to guess that when this ordinance was contemplated, they weren't thinking about a Hy-Vee superstore when they said grocery stores. Our ordinance is quite old, so I don't think there was that. Dry cleaners, some service type uses are provided, some small office, post offices. They did list, and I think it's important to note, that gas stations with fuel service were a conditional use, and that is still the case in this area. If Casey's, Come and Go, or whatever wanted to go out here, they would have to secure a conditional use permit. As a matter of fact, anything with a drive-through as a part of the zoning, and on the building, the new building that just went up, was Parks and Schmidt. One of the end units has a drive-through that did go through the process to get a conditional use permit for that. The C2, which a lot of the similar uses, it's just more of the uptown district. So you're going to see more of like retail businesses. It does have furniture stores, leather goods, liquor stores, office supply, pet shop, restaurants, taverns. I will point out, and I'm just got to say it, but it says dancing establishments. Those are not adult-use dancing establishments. When this was written, it was written regarding an actual dance. We do have a separate ordinance, and there would not be the ability to put an adult use out on Tower Terrace Road under the current zoning. And then it also identifies a number of business uses, business service establishments, banks, professional offices, so on and so forth. So anyway, does that answer a lot of the questions regarding the uses that are permitted?
Well, we haven't opened the public hearing, and I'm wondering if we should do the public hearing and then come back to our questions for, as we do our own discussion, then ask the questions for Tom. I just wanted to clarify because that might affect people who wanted to speak at the public hearing.
Yep.
So
the ordinance that's on the agenda is the Planning Commission's recommendation to only remove the restrictions for the hours of operation as identified on the map. And I'll kind of zoom in to that area. If there's a desire for the zoning map to be placed, I can do that as well. It's right underneath, so if someone wants
okay. So the ordinance tonight is limited to that red area.
That's correct.
The red area is the boundary for this change of hours. Okay.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And invite anyone who's here to address this in support of the ordinance that's proposed. Please come forward. Anyone in support? Okay. Anyone to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance, please come forward. And if you plan to speak, maybe come sit up here so that we can identify who's going to be talking, and then we can save time in terms of having everybody efficiently. No, please go ahead. You start. Yes. And please, Mayor, state your name and your address. Yeah, thank you.
My name is John Mark. I live at 3909 Shady Oak Drive, Marion, Iowa. I sort of got involved in this whole process of where all of this is. Tom did a very good job on explaining a lot of the history. I was one of the negotiators when you were annexing my area into the city.
Yeah.
And we got involved in much of the discussion on what could be done with the properties and the expansions along Tower Terrace at that time. Initially, the property, of course, was the PDC, which was where it was when we moved in. The key that we saw was there was a request from Mr. Mooney to change that to a C3 at that time. It went through planning and zoning, and then it went to the city council. The city council, in a meeting in May of 2013, kicked it back to planning and zoning because of complications. That kickback was at the recommendation of the city manager, Lon, to have people readdress the issues. During the conversation, it was encouraged at that point during the meeting of the city council that the developer, the members of the neighborhoods, which were Brookside and also all of us being annexed north, would sit down with the city people and work out an agreement that we could try to find a way to make this work so that you could still have commercial and not destroy the nature of the neighborhoods. So when that went back, we sat down before the Planning and Zoning Commission met. We worked out a general framework for which was then presented to Planning and Zoning. Planning and Zoning had a very good meeting on that particular item, and extremely lengthy discussion on that, where they, at that point, reviewed hours of operations. Were we going to have C1, C2 instead of C3? Those were all the negotiated points between the developer and the people who lived in the neighborhoods. Fine, we're there. So that went to P&Z. P&Z approved, and then at the meeting, it was passed by the city council, and that's how we developed what became the plan that's there today. The neighborhoods have continued to expand. The houses do not show on the map you're looking at along Eastview. Those are now being built in. So what you're looking at is not quite the clearest picture of the impact on the neighborhoods which have expanded around Tower Terrace. They're expanding with high-cost homes, with people who live in them, and this has a dramatic impact on their valuation should the wrong type of businesses come in. Now, the ones that have come in at Brookside are very nice. I mean, we commend the developer, the people who've built them. Those are excellent ones. The one misstep was the time they wanted to put a bar in next to a high school, which unfortunately, if you were here at that meeting, that one didn't go real well. There was a very large crowd. We would have been the only high school or junior high in the metro area with a bar next to it. It didn't make sense that Kennedy doesn't, Xavier doesn't, Jefferson doesn't. You can go down the list. So that was a rejected item.
Is that the restaurant and bar that you're talking about?
It was more bar than restaurant if you look at the prior owners, but that's what it was.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're thinking about the same
We're
thing.
talking about the same thing, and they own, the people who were developing owned a facility on the west side of Cedar Rapids. So, I mean, that's where it was. That did not go well. Very large meeting. It was turned down. Now we're back again on the changes. So each of the steps that has been done has been by the developer to go from the original zoning to a PDC. He then opted to move to a C3. When neighborhoods objected, we ended up going back to negotiations with the restrictions. That was accepted. I mean, when I read his letter, which he sent you folks, when he says he doesn't understand how that came, he sat in the meetings when we negotiated the hours of operation. So I truly don't understand where he says he doesn't understand how it came about, because we were ordered to sit down so that we could work an amicable solution. So in a nutshell, most of us do not appreciate the changes that are being proposed. That doesn't mean that we're anti-development. I mean, my occupation is I'm an insurance man. I insure businesses. I insure people who build things on these places. I want them to build them. But you have to look, there has to be that balancing act between what's your commercial development and what's your residential development, and don't try to shoehorn some things that would be wrong for the neighborhood that you're going into. This proposal doesn't meet the neighborhood. It doesn't meet the other things. And I think that's what you're going to hear from most people, is that it really isn't apropos to actually doing a good development, because they want to build more houses. I mean, Scoblin's building one right now, right down the street from me. They want to put those houses in. If you put something in that's wrong, those lots aren't going to get sold either. So I'm just sort of saying, we think this is the wrong way to go, the incorrect status of what's going to happen. So answer any questions if you want. Love to try to explain it, but that's sort of the background of how everything went together in the negotiations. Again, Tom was very good. He explained a lot of it, and I hope you understand it better. I was involved in negotiations. Hopefully that helps a little bit in explaining why the neighborhoods have the feeling they have.
Are you
Thank you very
you're
much.
opposed to the change in the restricted area, that smaller area? I mean,
I live on 3 houses up off of Eastview. The people across, there are houses that are built, they're not on the map. I'm on Shady Oak. It tees in to Eastview.
understand. Yeah.
And then the land that abuts those houses is developmental land. So it is in the current agreement of C3. And again, the restrictions, if you go east, where they show the sort of checker, if you go east of where the red is on the north side, those areas are restricted because you can't put a drive-through restaurant, there's other restrictions are already in those as well. So I'm assuming, are they going to come back for the next bite of the apple to put them in there next to the homes that are being built there for high dollars? So, tax base is tax base, but it applies both ways. It applies to homeowners, and we pay taxes too. That's the feeling most of the people in the neighborhood have. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Tim Eisenberg, 1925 Sugar Ridge Drive, and I'm also the president of the Board of Education for the Linn-Mar Community School District. And on behalf of the board, I'd like to read a statement, please. Linn-Mar has been and is very supportive of growth of business along Tower Terrace and on the north side of Marion. And we've even donated land to the further expansion of the Tower Terrace project with a road running through our campus. As a district, we are opposed to the change being requested in the ordinance that affects the hours of operation for developments of restaurant, bars, establishment near Linn-Mar on Tower Terrace. When the commercial area was initially established, Linn-Mar did not protest because it was done under an ordinance which specified the hours of operation and the likelihood of those business operations challenging the time constraints and generating traffic during school and event times was limited. Linn-Mar has a number of evening and weekend events in addition to practices at the Excelsior Middle School, Linn-Mar High School, the Linn-Mar Stadium, and the Linn-Mar Aquatic Center. These evening and weekend events include concerts, football games, soccer matches, track and field events, swim meets, wrestling meets, plays, and hosted events such as Supernova, invitational swim meets, and regional athletic contests. In addition, students regularly hang out at the LMPL, which is the Linn-Mar parking lot, as a gathering place to see friends in the afternoons and evenings. Parking and traffic generated by these events become a further issue if complicated by the increased operational hours of our restaurant bars whose business it is to attract customers. The safety and well-being of our students and families is our primary concern. The sale of alcohol so close to our schools and facilities creates additional issues regarding safety of both consumption levels and adult behavior. Our district has policies prohibiting the use of alcohol and tobacco products on our school premises. The request to increase the hours of availability of alcohol sales increases our concerns for the safety of our students and families, both of those attending school events and those who live in the close proximity. Please do not change the ordinance to accommodate a few businesses when all the others have complied with the current plan. This is about the good of the whole, not the desire of a few. A change in the ordinance will lead to more requests for variances, and then what will the standard be? Thank you.
Any questions?
Well, do you want to wait until
Bob,
after?
if you have a question for him in particular, I mean, he's not going to come back up, so.
No, but I could understand why building a bar next to a high school would be a good idea, having been a teacher at one time.
I do have a question. So the board is against having the hours lifted in that location? only?
We're not against a restaurant going there. We are against extending the hours of operation with alcohol sales that close to our school.
In that location, right? In the red box?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't have a further up-to-date map as far as where other buildings have
Houses, you mean?
houses, yeah.
All along that road is filled
So, I
in
mean,
now.
so that's not really up to date.
Well,
I-
it's settled, I mean,
I can provide a preliminary plat that'll show the lots that are platted. We don't have aerial footage to show. I mean, it's growing pretty fast.
Well, it would
so,
be easier to see, you know,
yeah.
to.
I understand what you're asking. I can show you the lots that are available.
Do you have a question for Mr. Eisenberg right now?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Yeah.
If I can get on the server.
Turned in my.
Yeah.
Since we turned in the slips, you still need name and address and all that?
Please.
Okay. Kevin Camp, 4041 Shady Oak Drive in Marion. Also part of the neighborhood to the north. A lot of the stuff that I would say was covered by Tom and Tom very well. So I just wanted to mention that the hours of operation for most of the neighbors, I can't speak for all of them, but that is the sticky wicket in the ointment. We did have an extensive meeting with the property developer, and the hours of operation were a concession specifically to help limit the types of businesses that might locate in that area. You know, we understand there's going to be development. Tower Terrace is a major road. It's only going to get busier. You know, we're not trying to be unreasonable. We also know to the west of there, there's probably going to be some additional businesses that will be open later, and it makes perfect sense. A lot of times in these sorts of developments, and what we've seen them do further east in town, is they establish buffer areas with multi-unit residential or condos or other types of light businesses before you get into the C3 with the unrestricted hours. For better or for worse, as the residential has been allowed to develop in that area, there isn't room for that sort of a buffer. And again, largest investment of anybody's life is their home. And I think people do make different decisions based on what their expectations are for the property. I think most of us, although we would probably prefer not to have anything serving alcohol in there, we understand that that's going to happen. Most of the restaurants that I'm familiar with the exception of your straight-out bars, they're closed by 11 o'clock. Carlos Achilles, Applebee's, those sorts of places. And I don't think, push comes to shove, I don't think any of us are opposed to those sorts of things. You know, we get it. There's a need for that. But we'd like to see them closed by 11. A friend of mine used to say nothing good ever happens after 11. So there's already lots of traffic out there, as has been pointed out, most of it driven by the school. We're okay with that. The school's been a good neighbor. We understand when that's going to be over, but we don't want to add to that. We don't want to have young drivers being mixed with people that have been at an adult establishment later on in the evening. And let's see here. Also, just as a statement, once the area is developed with a building, the taxes to the city are going to be the same, whether it's a doctor's office or a bar for the most part. The hours of operation limiting to 11 is not going to limit the long-term tax collections on the property. Yes, it may inhibit the developer's ability to develop the property quite as quickly as he would like it to, but that's not necessarily, you know, the city's issue or our issue. I mean, that's kind of his job as a developer, and he takes on that risk. And if it takes a little longer to do it the right way, we'd like to see it done the right way. And my last statement is that we thought we kind of had this settled with the developer quite some time ago. And, you know, how many times do we have to keep coming back to make our wants and needs known? He only has to get this through once, and it's pretty much changed for good. We have to come back every single time to make our wishes and desires known. You know, we're not opposed to everything, but we are very much opposed to anything being open after 11 because of the meetings that we have had and because of the negative impact we think it would have.
Questions for him?
So again, I'll ask, so you're opposed to
yes.
No,
Yes.
That exact, okay.
Opposed to everything,
Anything
but yes,
changing.
that as well.
Anything changing?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, just want to clarify.
Hi, Renee Gedalia, 797 Oak Park Circle. I wasn't planning to speak. I'm going to an awkward position being the chair of planning and zoning, but also on the school board. And just for the record, because there is a record, I am part of the planning and zoning vote that supports that and pushed it forward. And so I'm not sure if Tim was aware when he just answered that the entire school board is even against that piece. It would be disingenuous for me to not come up here and point that out, as many people who are here tonight were at the planning and zoning meeting where I don't know if I think I seconded that motion and supported it. So I just want to point out, I wasn't at the last school board meeting. I was out of the country. Perhaps it was discussed and put forward. I agree with many of the sentiments in there, but the full board, I don't know if the full board is against that. I am not. I am in favor of that as a school board member. Just wanted to point it out for the record.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is E. John Tracy, 350 Irish Drive. I would just like to say when I have a letter to read to the board in just about 15 seconds from now. But when Tom first came up here and showed us the original map that extended all the way from North 10th Street, where it intersects with Tower Terrace, to the Alburnett Road, it made it look as if this motion to change the zoning was for that entire area. Then when he was done, it was down back to this area. That was also not a good map, as apparently this one may be outdated. I hope you'll give me about 90 seconds here to get to the Tower Terrace thing. But this is a letter from myself and my wife to the Marion City Council. I would like to thank the Marion City Council, the City of Marion and the Marion City Council for the progressive direction that the city has taken with many of its projects. The uptown area is already showing a very strong sign of rebirth and is in the process of developing a modern vibe that honors the past and looks forward to the future. The new library, plaza, and parking ramp are going to help complete the look that so many citizens are desiring. The mixed-use library approach will allow people to live uptown in a setting that might be similar to Newbo and Cedar Rapids. We have recently been made aware of the possibility that a developer may be interested in a project that would call for the removal of the current library building to be replaced by modern apartments. We support that proposal as well. I am hopeful that the proposed development will lead to condos similar to those in downtown metropolitan areas being constructed by private developers to complement the buildings that will be completed in the next 3 or 4 years. The roundabouts that have been or will be constructed in Marion are another sign of progress that increases the movement of traffic through the city in a safe and orderly manner. Those roundabouts have also given the city a more modern and very aesthetically pleasing look. Art in the Alley in the uptown area is a project that honors the talent of both local and nationally known artists. It is gorgeous in every way. Outside of huge metropolitan areas or large college communities, this kind of project does not exist, but we have it in Marion. Thank you to the artists and those that work so diligently to make Art in the Alley happen. The public parks in Marion offer something for everyone. John Gill Park has been improved over the years and has made the Gill Park neighborhood a very desirous place to live for young families and older people as well. Lau Park is a futuristic vision of what every public park could be like. Thank you to the citizens and our public officials that have made this happen. Marion has been very fortunate to find people who are interested in being on the city council and represent the interests of the citizens. In recent weeks, my wife and I have visited with city council members who made themselves available on Saturday mornings to discuss any concern that was brought up. On 2 of those Saturdays, we talked with Paul Draper and Kim Etzel, discussing a number of projects that the city is involved in. We thank them for their time and their thoughtfulness. We're also appreciative of the years of service of veteran council members like Mary Lou Pazur, who has given much of her life to the city of Marion. With all of the good things happening in Marion, there is, however, one very dark cloud hanging over the citizens and the city. The dark cloud is a potentially hasty commercial development of Tower Terrace, and how that development is being driven by one developer who changes his demands on the city at every meeting that he attends. The developer knew what the zoning restrictions were when he purchased the property on or near Tower Terrace. Why do the citizens have to put up with this? The answer is we don't. We can and should challenge everything that the developer proposes that is based on him making a substantial profit at the expense of what the neighbors living near Tower Terrace want to see constructed. All present and future developers of Tower Terrace should adhere to the current building codes in the city of Marion. I would like to see a master plan for Tower Terrace development presented to the City Council by more than one developer. The development of Tower Terrace will be the biggest and most expensive project ever undertaken by the City of Marion, and the construction of that project cannot be left to the changing demands of one person. We do not need...
Sir, if you can just tell us how this will affect you without getting personal, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Well, again, I was here Tuesday night, and you guys wanted to change the zoning, not just for the area in red, but for the area all the way up to Alburnett Road on Tower Terrace. And when Tom came up to explain this, that's exactly what was on the map. I live at 350 Irish Drive. That area would be directly in back of my house. Not this area, but the extended area. And it does seem that at every one of these meetings where a change is asked for, it's the same kind of change, that someone wants to build a bar, and it's near a high school, it's near a middle school, it's near where, you know, probably hundreds of small children live. I don't think anyone that lives in this area doesn't recognize the fact that Tower Terrace is going to be developed commercially. But we want it to be resident-friendly, not the dream of one person. I think that that's just totally wrong and unacceptable. And I think if there's a way to challenge that legally, residents should do that. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And
good evening. My name is Steph Rederson. I live at 262 Barrington Court, which is actually this house right here. So our house will kind of be impacted by this. Our property values would go down if there a bar goes in this area. You know, we picked this neighborhood because it has, you know, a nice Gill Park at the end of the street, at the end of the cul-de-sac, which we're at all the, me and my two kids are at all the time. It will eventually have quick access to the interstate, which is something we were looking for. You know, and knew that when we bought our house that was, you know, a possibility of light commercial, you know, small businesses, you know, small restaurants, coffee shops, and I'm like, oh yeah, all right, coffee shop around the corner, I'm all for that. But when you increase the hours of operation so a bar can go in, that impacts my family and my two kids. If there's loud noises, you know, I mean, everybody's been complaining about the fireworks, right? You know, if a bar is open and gets a permit to operate, you know, a loud band or whatever late at night every weekend, I'm sorry, that's going to impact our lives. I know, and I'm all for a restaurant there. That'd be fabulous. Walk around the corner. You know, that I don't have a problem with that at all. But I do have a problem with a business being open till 2 a.m. when it's not necessary. There are plenty of other successful restaurants and other businesses that can operate within the restriction that this currently has. Thank you.
questions? Thank you. Sir?
Hi, I'm Mike Peterson, 3460 27th Avenue, Marion, Iowa. I also own Tomaso's here in Marion, and because of the possibility of the Marion Library project, I might have to move. About 6 months ago, I got contacted by a developer and realtor who had a project on Tower Terrace and offered me that spot. Because of the limited hours restriction, I just passed on it, okay? Now, I'm neutral in the sense that I don't want to bar catty corner from my house, okay? And on the other side, though, as a restaurant guy who has 3% alcohol sales, I'm more than happy to sell you a beer or two with your pizza. But if you want to sit around and drink, 5 pitchers of beer and watch the TV and get drunk, I'm going to basically cut you off and send you on the road. I just, we do that quite often, for the people that want to just drink too much. The problem being, the most appealing thing about this location to me, as I look at it is near the high school, okay? And that after a football game, I remember when I was growing up, we would go to a Shakey's Pizza and have pizza, okay? And Mom and Dad would have a beer and a wine, and they would relax from all the screaming and the shouting from the gymnasium or the football game while we sat around and had pizza, okay? And the idea and the problem here I see is that you've got, it sounds like 100-year-old zoning regulations, and you don't have the zoning that fits this area. And I don't know that you've got a solution on the table right now, because I wouldn't want a bar there. I completely understand the problem with the residents, okay? But I also had somebody just here who is opposed to this ordinance that said, we wouldn't mind having you there. And I've had people ask me, why don't you put Tomaso's out on Tower Terrace Road when you have to move, okay? And you got to understand, it's not just the bar that's restricted by the hours of operation, because what time do football games open, and how long am I going to be serving after a football or a basketball game or a concert, if somebody wants to come out after one of those things. And I'm only going to serve, 3% alcohol all year. But in previous iterations of my career, I've developed everything from sub shops to fine dining restaurants. And I'm not going to go in there if one of the primary sources of income that makes the site appealing, I can't stay open to get those sales. Even as a sub shop who wouldn't serve any alcohol, it would reduce the appeal of that place if I had to shut down by 11 o'clock, not serving any alcohol. Okay, so I don't see a solution on the table. I don't see what you can do. Your problem, the problem is not the conflict between the developer and the residents. The problem is you got to fix the zoning. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Come forward.
Hi, my name is Linda Miller, 4001 North 10th Street. I just live up the street from this area. And I am against the extended hours. Mooney stood here and said right in front of, I think just about everybody here, including many of the people in this audience, that he was not going to put a bar in this area. And that was the first time this whole thing came up. And a few months later, here it comes again. And now it's around another time. And I don't think we need extended hours in this area. And further, I believe there was supposed to be a berm behind Enesco to shield those houses, a berm and some trees. There's no berm there. And the trees that are there, there are various species, and some of them will never get very wide. They're not going to guard those houses anyway. So I think if a solution, you might decide to put a berm in, it's not going to work, because you can't trust somebody who doesn't do what they said. And I'm against the extended hours.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nick Glue, 3403 Penny Lane. I'm president of Marion Economic Development Corporation. My position tonight in representing our organization is more along the lines of the piecemeal approach that we seem to be taking relative to how we handle this situation in this particular area, and really the realities and recognizing how our community grows. We can look at historic trends in residential growth. We know that as a community, we're really good at building in excess of 150 single-family homes a year. We remain on track to do that. And the reality is that it takes these high-growth nodes to eventually support further growth of Tower Terrace Road and further connectivity of this significant northern commercial arterial that our organization and many others has been advocating for many years. We know it's critical to supporting long-term growth of our community, connectivity to places that people work. But the reality is it takes almost situations like this where homes are fully built out to the edge of adjacent zoning for it to start making sense for services like what we're talking about to exist. My concern, as there's clear struggle with this request, and my concern with this smaller approach is that this is only going to continue as our community grows. The Tower Terrace Road corridor has been a well thought out corridor for many years. I think somebody in the audience mentioned master planning, the desire to see that. I think many people don't realize that that has been done, and these plans are playing out. And we know that C3 exists adjacent to residential developments, and it's just the reality that the residential development fully builds out before commercial development can be justified. And I totally understand and do not disagree with any residents adjacent to here that's a hard thing to see once it gets to that as your neighborhood is developed adjacent. You can look at the 151 and 13 project. Prior to that being rezoned, it was C3, immediately adjacent to residential. We know that as we continue developing east on Tower Terrace Road, we're going to get into the area that's been master planned, the neighborhoods at Indian Creek. We know that there's been an effort to acquire land for future schools in that area. That area has also been master planned that includes future commercial development. So I guess my concern is more along the lines of ensuring that as we and you do the best in planning long-term for our community, that when these situations come to fruition where the environment and the market finally supports commercial development, that we don't get into situations like this on a regular basis. So I don't have a strong argument against this, but my concern is the fact that we're doing this on a smaller scale. And I think we just need to face the reality of how we grow and the fact the market's ready to respond.
So you're in favor of doing the whole thing?
That would be more my position, yeah.
I will also just remind everyone, if we can refrain from getting personal, I would really appreciate that. I'm not going to allow anybody to get personal anymore, personally attacking individuals. We can have a community discussion about things in a respectful manner, in a way that still respects each other, and we can make our feelings known in terms of how things will impact us, and let that be considered on its own merits and strengths without getting personal about individuals. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Shiflett, and I reside at 629 Eastview Avenue, so one of the houses on the end development there. I am opposed to lifting the ban on the hours for any of the property in that area, largely because there's just not enough buffer there. There's not enough buffer between the commercial area and the build-out of the residential houses along there. And my concern, because of the lack of buffer, putting in a business there that could operate past 11 o'clock at night is very concerning to me. While we live across the road from the red area, it's really not that large of a distance. The lights of ESCO, shine in our bedroom light at night. So while that maybe looks like there's a lot of space there really isn't. And so that's why I'm opposed. There's just not enough buffer between businesses, especially with that longer hours of operation, to the houses both to the south and the north of Tower Terrace. Thank you.
So you think there's not enough buffer in this red area also?
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't. Open for the smaller retail, and that's when we moved in there, we did ask that question. We were told it's soft commercial, restricted hours of operation. I was okay with that, but when you extend past 11, I think you just get a bigger variance of what businesses can go in there, and that's just, yeah, that's concerning. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Your Honor, council members. Tim Mooney, 862 Archer Drive, Marion. It has been convoluted. There's no disagreement from my perspective on how this has gone. I will say there's been some things that aren't true that have been said, but I'm not going to go through every point. But regarding landscaping behind ESCO, it's a waterway that goes through there. We couldn't put a berm or else the water would have ponded up, and the trees will grow. If you've been out there and taken a look at it, it's an absolutely beautiful screen buffering. We've had people tell us they like the buffering. Perhaps the lady that spoke a moment ago doesn't like it. Today, the ESCO group is a PDC, still is. They have room next to their building. They could put an addition on there today. As long as it matches the existing structure and the landscaping stays the same, they can put a restaurant in there serving alcohol today until 2 o'clock in the morning if they want. The PDC, where we started with the PDC, there was not hours of operation. I agreed to it. I'm not going to argue I agreed to it. I didn't know about it soon enough. If I had known in our discussions with staff, we wouldn't have went down that road. We would have stayed PDC. But we're losing projects because the PDC process takes an additional 3 to 4 months because of staff, has to go through planning and zoning, then has to come back through council, where a project that's C3 isn't required to do that. We've worked for the last several years with the 11 o'clock hours, and I didn't know the gentleman from Tomaso's was going to be here tonight, but thank you very much. The reality is we can't get, every time we have a conversation, and it's been a tremendous amount more than 2 restaurants we've talked to, they look at us and say no. We've talked to a movie theater that would like 5 acres north of Tower Terrace Road that has movies starting at 10:30 at night. It wouldn't be able to close by 11. I don't know anybody in this room that wouldn't walk to, everybody here could walk to that movie theater. We can't get a movie theater because we have to have them closed at 11. I agree. I don't want bars out here. We're not going to have bars out here because we don't have a population of 21 to 25-year-old people that want to sit and drink in a bar all day. What we're going to have is restaurants, and that's what we would have had in the other place that said, everybody says it was a bar on the west side of town, which it was. What they were presenting was a restaurant bar. So, we went to ZBA. ZBA said, we're not going to have every restaurant, have you come back with every restaurant and have 50 people show up and be angry. But council needs to deal with this issue. So here we are. We're back again. It's a situation where this is a major arterial road. Along major arterial roads, you have commercial, exactly like the commercial we have tonight. The PDC and the C3 with the C1, C2 uses are exactly the same uses we had in PDC. There was no big, this whole negotiation thing is nearly laughable because there's no different uses between the PDC and what we're doing today. We're going to be competing with folks in Cedar Rapids who, on the corner of C Avenue and Tower Terrace Road, Hy-Vee's already got zoning in place, which is going to allow next to them to have C3 with no hours of operation restriction. We're at a competitive disadvantage. The question then becomes, as additional pieces of Tower Terrace Road develop in Marion, are these the kind of restrictions we're going to have on it? Because if we are, it's going to develop really slow. I mean, we'll survive however long it takes to get this thing done, but I think the problem is that we're back the third time. It's not because we wanted to come back 3 times. The market tells us what to do. We're trying to fix it to address the market. So I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. And we're not going to go back on that west side or the east side of 3rd Street Extended and change that. We agreed with those folks we wouldn't put a restaurant there. We're not going to. I'm not going to ever come back and do that. I think I've demonstrated quite clearly in the last 20 years I've been developing ground in Marion. I've been in business in Marion for 40 years, but developing in Marion for 20 years. Be happy to show anybody any project we've ever done. And I think what we've done along Tower Terrace Road to date is show me any place else in Marion that's done as good a job as we have with design standards, the landscaping standards. We work with staff on design standards that are over and above any design standard in the community. And we think that that design standard should be in place throughout the community in North Marion along Tower Terrace Road. But tonight, I think it's important, if we want to have restaurants out there, and it seems like there's several people who said they do, if we don't allow them the opportunity to be past 11 o'clock, we're not going to get them. And I don't think that that little sliver right there is representative of what we need. And I appreciate your time. Thanks.
There are restaurants that don't open past 11 or past even 10 on weekends.
Where?
In town. Not in Marion. I don't know about Marion, but I mean around there are.
Well, and none of these guys will stay open past 11 if they don't have.
So why do they see this as a hindrance? Why do they, if they won't? I mean, and this is not an area that they would want to probably stay open past 11. But so why do they see it as a? I'm trying to understand. Why do they see it as a hindrance when most likely they're not going to?
I think the gentleman from Tomaso's touched on it perfectly.
Pardon?
I think the gentleman from Tomaso's touched on it perfectly. There's football games. There's lots of events that end past. I mean, they'll go till a supernova and it gets done at midnight. Football games end at 10:30. You're going to be able to go across the street and say, "Hey, I want to get a burger and a beer," and they say, "Sorry, we're closing in 20 minutes. We can't serve you." I mean, that's the issue. That's the problem. It's not, you can't have people in there after 11. So if they come in at 10:30, they can maybe get a beer and that's it. They're not going to be able to serve them food. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, Marion.
Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, you're the one having the discussions with your potential buyers, so.
We have lots of discussions with people, but they wind up being pretty short once they find out we have to quit at 11. They have to quit at 11. I didn't think it was going to be as big a problem as it is, to be quite honest, but it is, and that's the reality. So I also agree that Mr. Draper brought it up, and I've talked about it for a long time as well. As I think what we've spent, this is I don't know how many times we've been back and forth on this thing, but I think we have the uses right. I think we have the design standards right. I think we have the landscaping standards right. It's just the hours that are wrong. You get that fixed, and then we can move on.
What are some examples of the design standards?
Well, we don't allow any vinyl siding. Any building under 10,000 square feet is going to be a pitched roof to try to maintain the integrity of the residential neighborhood. ESCO is a 33,000 square foot building. They chose to do the pitched roofs to try to maintain the look. I worked extensively with Parks and Smith when they bought their lot. Their building is above 10,000 feet. They wanted to do something completely different than what they have there with metal roofs and things like that. I asked them if they couldn't, and they were going to use some hardy plank siding, which is acceptable to cement siding, and I asked them if they wouldn't be willing to do like we've done in the rest of the buildings that we own and have built, using either a minimum of a split-faced stone, brick, or stucco finish. I think the idea that we're trying to do with this development is make it Class A space and have it, as Marion continues to grow east and west on Tower Terrace Road, that we continue to see these types of buildings be built. The landscaping standards are higher than any landscaping standard in a C3. Any zoning district that we have in the city, we've agreed to a higher level. I mean, throughout this entire process, we've agreed to a higher level of finish on every product, entirely across the board. So I'm just hoping we've set the bar at a level that as you continue to develop along Tower Terrace Road, it's something we can all be proud of as a community. I'm very proud of what we've done out there and what we'll do in the future.
Any other questions?
Outside of the public hearing, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else to address the council for or against? Sir, come forward.
Hi, my name's Steve Point. I live on Barrington, 715. And I get all the future stuff and how we're growing and developing. But if we know this, why don't we put something further away and let the houses, the people that want to buy a nice house, figure out if they want to buy it next to the building? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Can't they just put it to the west a little bit where there's fields if it's developing? I mean, I'm just saying, because where they're going, you got children playing there. 3rd Street is a bicycle route, which I drive every day almost, and I'm along Tower Terrace on my bicycle driving. And I'm just really confused why we keep changing zones. If we're planning, plan it. Don't impact me, because I've heard it, and I've heard some other neighbors say, well, you ever thought about moving? No, I thought about buying a house. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I mean, I think, it requires not only someone who's willing to develop and build something, but someone who's willing to sell their land for that purpose. And further west from there, that's not an option right now.
Okay, I'm just wondering because...
Yeah, no, so I'm just explaining it to you, so...
I mean, if we would keep coming back here every time, it just doesn't make sense. So
yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think...
But I'm against it.
Sure.
Because I do care about the kids in the community.
I think she was first, but yeah, thank you.
Hello, my name is Jessica Harini, and I live at 217 Barrington Court, so this house right here. I've heard a lot of conversation and everything against, right? Because either you're against it because you don't want the hours of operation extension, or you're against it because you don't think it should be restricted to this small parcel of land. And I agree with everyone actually so far that's come up here and made that point on both sides. And I'm really hungry talking about restaurants, so I'm gonna want to make my point and get out of here. But it is a paradox, right? Because as the community is growing, that's when you drive the demand for businesses, right? And the issue is, I think that the city council should consider, and why you should totally reject this just for this piece of land and go back to the drawing board, is that we built our houses with a zone that was established that had an hours of operations, or I guess the PDC, which had a requirement that it had to go to planning and zoning every time. So the neighbor had a voice to say, I'm against that project or I'm not. And then that extended to this C3, C1, C2 thing that's very confusing to everyone. I think every time I hear it, I still don't have clarity on it because it is very confusing. But ultimately, that current zoning that was there was something that was agreed upon by both the neighbors and the developers to be a compromise for all of these houses that are right here, right along Tower Terrace Road. So when we're talking about all of Tower Terrace Road in the future of Marion and this setting the precedent, the problem is that the houses are already here. The residents already purchased properties that were just built this year on the north side of Tower Terrace Road with an understanding of what this zone is. And now if we go and change it, that's like a bait and switch, right? I bought one thing knowing that this is what it is. The rug just got pulled out under me, and now it's something different. And so I completely agree. We need, in the city plan, it should lay out, here's what the commercial zoning is going to be. And for this area, it's too late. The houses are already there. So it should stay as a residential-friendly commercial zone, because that's what everyone who lives there today knows it as. And then let the future development areas where there aren't houses right up against Tower Terrace Road. Let's talk about that now. Let's get that zone now so that people know what they buy that's what they're buying into. Thank you.
Questions? Okay, sir.
Hello, my name's Jeff Winders. My family lives at 182 Barrington Court, which is this home right here. We built our home there 7 years ago, prior to this. I'm totally opposed to all of it. The hours of extension, changing of the code, I was opposed to that. I'm very confused why this little section of land is so important in the grand scheme of development in Marion. There's a lot of land. I'm still struggling. I don't see what's so valuable about that. We've got splash pads. We've got kids everywhere. School. Opening this up to restaurants, bars, will impact the folks that are walking and jogging. As this gentleman said here, there's more people out there all the time walking their dogs. It's a great place for families, kids. Extending that to bars, restaurants, increasing that will diminish the value of the area, diminish my property value, and bring in more of what I don't want in the area. Thank you. That's my opinion.
Anyone else? Since you've already spoken, let's make sure there's nobody else who wants to speak. Or
This is one sentence statement. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to point out that the only person that brought up the design standards was the guy that was in favor. Nobody else has any problem with any of the design standards or anything that's been done out there. The hours of operation is the issue for pretty much everybody here. So,
okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Marks. I live at 512 Barrington Parkway. Sorry I'm not here more often, but thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to say that I've lived at my house for about 4 years now, just before the birth of my son. We're planning on staying here till he gets to graduate through Linn-Mar. We knew what the zoning was behind our house. I knew that there could be a laundromat and a check into cash and a small grocery mart and some other items that could be going through there. If I'd known that there was going to be a bar within walking distance, I wouldn't have picked that place. I treasure my child and know the safety of my area. I've lived next to bars and pubs before. I know what type of environment that can be. I also know that as soon as the zoning changes for that, the argument for moving, adding a pub anywhere along there is pretty much moot. There's a reason they're called pub crawls. Having one, the best place for the next bar is right next door. So I am opposed to the change. I'd like to maintain the current zoning. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, last chance. Anyone would like to address the council on this issue? Okay, the public hearing is closed.
Yes, Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance number 17-18, concurring with the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation to amend ordinance 1314 of the Marion Code of Ordinances, removing the limitation of hours of operations for property generally described as being located south of Tower Terrace Road, west of 3rd Street, east of Irish Drive, and north of and west of Esco Company. Initial consideration.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 17-18, concurring with the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation to amend ordinance 13-14 of the Marion Code of Ordinances, removing the limitation on hours of operation for property generally described as being located south of Tower Terrace Road, west of 3rd Street, east of Irish Drive, and north and west of Esco Company. Initial consideration. Discussion. I hope we have some discussion.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Paul. Oh, you want to start with me? Okay.
Go ahead.
I guess my problem is what's to stop the extension after, if this passes and goes through, what's to stop the extension and just kind of piecemeal taking it in either direction? And I'll tell you, I don't know how many people out there were affected by it, but I'm sure we all got phone calls when Cocktails had their little to-do, and I mean, when miles away windows were rattling because of the noise that was being affected, and they had exceeded their hours of operation. I would not want to live near a bar. I'm sorry. Even though at one time I probably would have.
Question.
I have a couple of questions. As far as Linmar is concerned, how far is that, Tom, from?
Oh, it's close.
About a quarter of a mile to the
Linmar Stadium. Okay. Another question I have is, what is the current, we're changing this ordinance, what is the current city ordinance closing time for restaurants and bars?
2 a.m.
2 a.m.? Thank you. You know, I keep hearing a bar, and what we've been asked for is a restaurant, so I don't know how if we got on a bar all of a sudden. I felt, Tom, I'll say to you again, that I think we need a zoning for Tower Terrace Road, and I know you're busy, but I think in its entirety, we should have a separate zoning ordinance affecting Tower Terrace Road. Because, you know, this is a start. I don't know what the realtors told those folks on Barrington Parkway when they bought their homes. Definitely something's going to happen there, and if we're talking about a Outback sort of a restaurant, I would rather have that personally than I would a convenience store that closed at 11 in there. I mean, there's so many things that can be now. And I think at the meeting Tuesday, I know I asked that it be restricted to that area instead of all of it, because we already have commercial there. So, you know, that's all I have. The zoning, I think we need the zoning change, but you know, we can't limit entirely what we're going to do with that land. You know, we're going to build a YMCA up the street. It may be open till 3 in the morning. Are we going to complain about that? They have nighttime exercise classes. You know.
If anyone's going to address the council, you need to come to the microphone because it is taped, and so we want everything to be recorded. So, thanks.
Yeah, I would like to say, I think what's being asked for is just a nice neighborhood restaurant. And I think it'll enhance the neighborhood. It's a place to gather with your friends and family, school friends. I think, and then the 2 o'clock closing time, That would be, I think, just a rare exception, staying open till 2. I think during the week, no place is really going to stay open till 2. I don't think the business is there. On the weekends, maybe not either, but they just want the option, you know. And I think it would be a rare time that they'd stay open till 2, but I think it's a great idea.
No, I do have another comment, please.
Go ahead.
I think it's unfair to the people who have purchased lots and built out there because they were under the impression that it was going to be a certain expectation of what their surroundings would be, and it's not fair to those who, in good faith, bought and built.
But it could be a restaurant that closed at midnight, Councilman. You know, would our objections be the same with that? You know.
Well, of course, I don't want to go back into my background, but having been a deputy sheriff and having worked with an alcohol safety action program and dealing with drunk drivers a lot, anything near where there are school activities and this possibility, it's not a good combination.
I guess that's a good question. I mean, is there something in between, like 11:30 or midnight, that would still discourage the bars, but make it a better situation for a restaurant that serves alcohol? I don't know. That's a good question. You're right. I mean, the particular request being made may be for a restaurant, but we're not changing this. And I keep saying this, and I said it on Tuesday. We're not changing this zoning requirement for one particular user or one particular developer or owner. There's no doubt that the development that has gone along, that has already occurred along Tower Terrace Road, is top quality. But this is changing the zoning ordinance, or the one requirement in the zoning for all time, for all people. It could be one user today, but it could be a different user 5 years from now, and then that zoning now allows something that's that maybe you don't want. I don't know, but so I just want everybody to just keep that in mind. This is not about one individual or one developer or even one user. This is about the property and how it can be used. This particular parcel is this land. So I think that's what we're talking about. I think that's where the homeowners are coming from. It's not an easy thing. This is a very difficult decision. So, Joe, we haven't heard from you.
Well, I guess the only thing I'd say is that, we have a person that has said, they're going, like Paul has said too, that they're looking at building a restaurant here. It's not a bar, and if he can't sell this or sell this to a development for something like that, he's going to sell it to someone else, perhaps, that will be something you really don't want out there. So, and I'd like to see a real nice restaurant go in there, and a restaurant that would have 2% alcohol sales. That's not a bar to me. I mean, that's a high quality restaurant. So, I guess I'm for changing the hours for this one section. We did discuss on Tuesday about the buffering, and that'll be something we need to talk about also. But as for my part, I'm for opening it up so Tim can get this development moving.
I'll say I wasn't up here last time this came up, so hearing from the residents, this is the first that I've really gotten of that. And it's a shame from what I've heard, too, that some people that have built or purchased homes up there were not told what was going on behind the houses. I did look up some restaurants, some national restaurants. Applebee's closes at midnight. Buffalo Wild Wings is open till 1. Outback was open till 11, I think it said. Now I'm forgetting. But I think Paul might be onto something over there, and I think Mr. Peterson brought it up too. if we could do some type of zone for Tower Terrace Road. I know everybody out in the audience has been saying restaurant, restaurant, restaurant. Maybe Tower Terrace zone, they have to have 80% food, and things like that. So we don't have a restaurant that comes in that's 50-50. You might have staying open till 1 o'clock. That's because it's alcohol. It's a restaurant that's based off food and not alcohol. That's what everybody sounds like they want out there. So I would make the recommendation that maybe we do set this aside for now and look into doing some type of zone out there that would specify what can go there, and if it is a restaurant that, and we would obviously talk to the neighborhood again, if it is, say, a restaurant that wants to be open until midnight, maybe that specific type can be allowed because they are a 20% only alcohol sale or 10% alcohol sale. But it would be specific to Tower Terrace.
But this really needs to be done before any decision is made on this, instead of kind of, we're going to close the barn door after the horse is gone and try to deal with that.
I know that it was discussed before that, maybe we need an overlay district for Tower Terrace Road that had special zoning. I don't know whatever came of that.
Good idea.
But, it's clear that there's no one who expects this is not going to be some kind of commercial. I mean, everybody knows it's going to be commercial. Everybody expects that. Whatever happened with the zoning and the negotiations or whatever it was, what happened. The reality is that this road goes through a residential area. I mean, that's just the reality we have to deal with. And so we have to be very thoughtful and sensitive about how we allow it to develop.
I would say, too, that's the unfortunate thing, that the development that has happened has been the residential first. If it would have been the other way around, which
someone explained it to me that this is sort of how things are these days. It's not where you build the commercial and then the houses follow. Right. The commercial waits until there are enough houses in the area, and then they can justify coming in and providing the services that the residential areas need. And I think there's a lot of demand for services out in that area. People from the entire northern part of Marion want things there. I have to think that there's some way to tweak things so that you can allow the right kind of development that the neighborhood wants and needs, or that the people up in that area want. And I don't know if that's with an overlay district, but
Could we send it back to zoning and tell them that we want the Tower Terrace Road zoning, that they could twerk it by saying, all right, on Tower Terrace Road, if there is a restaurant, it has to close at 1 o'clock. I mean, certainly those things can be changed, Tom.
I guess I understand where the council's coming from that perspective, but I can assure you that this very issue will be the issue when we sit down and have the conversation again. So whether the discussion is now or in the future, I mean, a restaurant and a bar definition will be the issue. Hours of operation, whether it's nights on the weekend or weekday, will be the issue. And I mean, I'm just that's the issue. You haven't heard any other use really talked about tonight.
Correct.
And I mean, I can tell you that, what if a Walgreens went out there? I mean, that's an option. I mean, it's a commercial. So I mean, I think this has come a long ways. We've been in front of the council a number of times with it, and the same issues will go back, and we'll be back even if we can call it a Tower Terrace Road overlay district. The question will come: is the definition of a bar and a restaurant, or the hours of operation? If there's a desire to define those within the ordinance, I mean, I think that's something we can look at. You could ask for a further definition of that or something, but I I mean, we're always can look at that stuff, but I think it's going to come down to the very issue that we're talking about right now.
From a liquor liability standpoint, it's 50/50 if you're below 50 in food.
Yep.
So,
And that was the discussion when the restaurant came forward before, and I know everybody in the audience is probably saying it was a bar. You know, it was proposed by an owner of a bar. There are people that own all types of business and different formulas and different ways that they do those. You know, one of the disappointments in that proposal, and it had nothing to do with anybody, it was the fact that it's not a known quantity. And I think I mentioned this before. If someone came in and said it's at Applebee's, I don't know, I'm going to maybe go on a limb, but I don't think anybody would be too bent out of shape if an Applebee's was proposed in the area. Maybe I'm wrong. But it's a known quantity. If someone said it's Joe's Burger Shop and they show a floor plan and an elevation, that is going to be a different story because it's an unknown quantity. So I think, you know, that was one of the disappointments in that, and it's almost ironic because I think most of us in this room would love to see a homegrown business opposed to a chain business in the vicinity as well. So I do think that the issue that we're talking about right now will be the issue that will be perpetuated throughout the conversation. I don't know if that helps the discussion at all, but that's...
I think the perfect example is what Mr. Peterson said with Tomaso's. He's 3% alcohol sales, but he won't go out there because of the 11 o'clock. I would think that most people in the audience would be happy to have a Tomaso's right around the corner.
I mean,
but yeah,
you can remove the bar. Don't permit a bar.
That's kind of what I'm saying with rezoning, is because everybody's having the issues with bars. If there was a district or whatnot out there where you have to limit or more food so that it's not a bar. I mean, it's hard to.
Yeah. I mean, the ordinance could be amended to exempt a bar, which would be anything lower than 50% of.
They can serve alcohol but not have a bar. Restaurant, you know, you want a glass of wine.
Yeah.
See, that's why I think maybe we need to have a different threshold for what's considered a bar in a restaurant instead of the 50/50.
That's the current code. And,
right.
You know, and we don't go out and ask for that on a yearly basis. That's how we define it. So if there is an issue, that's one way we can check on it. We use that primarily in an area where there's a commercial, there's a restaurant next to a church, because you can be next to a church and have a restaurant, but you can't be with a bar. Particularly in the uptown, I believe that's how it's written.
Other discussion?
I would like to see this tabled until something came up that was more concrete, because this is so nebulous that, once again, is there going to be an extension? I don't know.
An extension?
As far as building on and wanting to change the rest of the zoning on Tower Terrace. Oh. Like I said, I cannot visualize where the houses are. So, I mean, this map is...
Yeah. Well, this vote is about the red area, so... But
if you can look at the red area, but you've got to look at the whole thing because it's there.
If you go out there and look, they're fairly close to Tower Terrace Road down in that other area. But the fact remains, it's commercial zoned. Something's going to happen there.
Right. So
that's the.
Oh.
I think what Will is saying is it maybe, it just needs its own special rules for this area. It just needs its own special rules that accommodate commercial and don't, overly impact the neighborhood and the quality of life in that area. I don't think any of us want to negatively impact people's quality of life. That's what we pride ourselves on, is giving people a great quality of life. And again, it's not about the quality of development that's going to go in today or the use that's going to go in today. When the rule is changed 5 years from now, there could be a whole different business in there.
It could, but we can't put this council and future councils in a situation where every time something's going to happen on Tower Terrace Road, it comes in here and we have to make it. You need solid zoning for the area.
That works for that particular area because it's very unique. We haven't faced this, and this is one of the issues that we're facing as we grow. Growth is great, but it's not without challenges, and it requires us, to be thoughtful and careful in how it's happening. My 2 cents. Any further discussion?
Mary Lou thinks it should be tabled. I think I'm agreeing with her that maybe we table it and discuss it more.
Actually, I wouldn't mind seeing it tabled and coming up with a zoning plan that is a Tower Terrace zone specifically. The whole thing.
Well, there has to be an emotion, otherwise we need to move on and vote on the motion that's on the table.
Until the planning department can come up with a feasible, workable, usable answer to not only the people who want business there, but the people who already live there and who are thinking about buying lots to build there. So I move to table.
Second.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out what that motion was. I understand tabling it, but until
planning can come up with a feasible, workable plan.
Special zoning for Tower Terrace Road.
That is Tower Terrace specific.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to table the motion and to direct staff to work on special zoning for Tower Terrace Road.
Correct.
Is that how you understand it? Okay, discussion on the motion to table. Discussion?
I guess I'll just say I think some type of meeting that works with the developer and residents to see exactly what we need to do for the area and for all of Tower Terrace, for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. The full length.
Yeah, so not just residents here, but anyone along Tower Terrace. And any developer along Tower Terrace, too.
Other discussion on the motion to table?
Can we have a time frame on that? I don't want to put you on the spot, Tom, but we need to start having meetings. I don't know how long Mr. Mooney can keep a prospect alive here.
Well, if there's plans to resolve this, there probably would be more agreeable as far as somebody extending their interest in it.
Right. You may hit upon a different closing time on midnight, 1 o'clock, for the whole zone. But I do think as quickly, as expedient as we can do that is when we need to do it.
I want to know about this theater. Is that a drive-in?
We could have a drive-in theater out there, yeah.
So we have this motion on the table. Any discussion on the motion to table? Okay. So should we do a roll call vote?
Mr. Draper?
Yes.
Ms. Etzel?
No.
Mr. Spinks?
No.
Mayor Abawasley?
Yes.
Mr. Brandt?
Yes.
Ms. Pazur?
Yes.
Passes 4-2.
Okay. The motion is tabled.
Yes, Your Honor. I move approve resolution number 26212, approving final plat and memorandum of agreement for Industrial Center East 13th Edition, located north of 3rd Avenue and west of 44th Street in Marion, Lynn County, Iowa. James and Terry Anderson request.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26212, approving final plat and memorandum of agreement for Industrial Center East 13th Edition, located north of 3rd Avenue and west of 44th Street in Marion. Discussion.
So Tom, is this,
That's the automobile.
right, so is this making the pond basically that it has its own plat and then a second plat for developing next to it? Is that
Correct.
basic? Okay.
Yep.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
Yep.
Motion passes.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 26213 of necessity for the installation of sidewalks per the approved memorandum of agreement for Outlot A and Outlot B of Oak Park Estates First Edition.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26213, resolution of necessity for the installation of sidewalks for the approved memorandum of agreement for Outlot A and Outlot B of Oak Park Estates First Edition. Discussion. Okay. All those in favor of resolution number 26213, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. And the next several items, I will turn over the gavel to Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, Your Honor, Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve Resolution 26214, approving final site development plan for 2 multi-tenant commercial buildings located on the northeast corner of Highway 13 and 151.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Is there a discussion? Tom, are these right on the corner of 29th and 29th Avenue?
No, these are 13 and 151.
No, this is part of the,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. This is the, yeah, I was going the wrong way. Sorry. Any other discussion that aren't as confused as I was? Hearing none, then all those in favor of Resolution 26214 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Draper.
Yes, Your Honor, I have a resolution 26,215 approving final site development plan for DePaco located on the northeast corner of Highway 13 and 151.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor of Resolution 26215 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Etz?
Yes, Your Honor, make a motion to approve resolution number 26216, amending relocation assistance agreement in the amount of $1,581.01 to D&R Engines and Machine Incorporated, associated with the Central Corridor Project.
Second.
Oh, two.
Third.
Fourth.
You want your engine fixed, don't you?
I do.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on this item. Hearing none. All those in favor of Resolution 26216 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. A public hearing regarding a proposed amendment to the Collins Road Extension Urban Renewal Area. And I believe we're going to have a picture.
We went over this on Tuesday, so I won't go too far into detail again, but the next 3, 1, 2, and 3 are all related to the amendment to the Collins Road Extension Urban Renewal Plan. A few months ago, Council amended the Central Corridor Urban Renewal Plan and restated the boundaries. We are now restating the boundaries for Collins Road, making sure there's no overlap. So the green that you see here is the original 1994 urban renewal area. This orange area is what will now be included in Collins Road, and so that entirety, that green and the orange combined, will make up the new boundaries. The second thing this amendment does is authorizes council to begin to take action on 3 additional development agreements, though all of the action on those items would be taken separately in separate actions. Those are for the 2 projects along the East End Roundabout, the hotel and the commercial, as well as the development along 13 and 151.
Okay, thank you. So this is a public hearing. Does anyone want to speak in favor of these projects? Not seeing anyone. Anyone want to speak against these projects or want more information on them? Not seeing any. Public hearing is closed. Mr. Brandt.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 26217 declaring necessity and establishing an urban renewal area pursuant to section 403.4 of the Code of Iowa and approve urban renewal plan amendment for the Collins Road Extension urban renewal area.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion on these items? Nothing? Okay, all those in favor of resolution 26217 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Your Honor, I move to approve the initial consideration of ordinance 17-17, providing for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the July 2017 Collins Road Extension Urban Renewal Area Addition pursuant to section 403.19 of the Code of Iowa.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on this. So the way it was before, Lon, were we not able to collect taxes on it, or what? Why is this different?
No, the original urban renewal area had boundaries that are in the green that Amanda identified, and so in order to add the territory to that area for the division of taxes in the orange area, we have to pass another ordinance that allows for that to happen. The original district was passed prior to a law change in 1995, so it's got some qualities that you can't have in the new one, so this ordinance actually establishes and creates the ability to have the underlying TIF district beneath the urban renewal area. I know we kind of use urban renewal areas and TIF districts interchangeably, but they are different animals. An urban renewal area can encompass many different TIF districts. Those are defined by the ordinance, which is what this is doing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this? Okay, this is our initial consideration of ordinance 1717. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ordinance carries.
Your Honor, I have resolution 26,218 approving the economic development grant agreement with GLD for commercial hotel.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on this?
Yeah, with this one I wanted to bring just up a couple of things for the council. You know, while I wasn't here on Tuesday, I understand there was some discussion about the site plan and how that was going to work and that it hadn't been reviewed. One of the things that I really wanted to draw a distinction on is that this agreement is about the financing that the city would provide to help the hotel get over the hump and get built. In this case, this property is within the area that's underneath the terms of the interim development ordinance. So there's an entire site review plan process that's built into our code separate from this to make sure everybody's comfortable with the site plan, the entrances and exits. There's a lot of other opportunities. In cases where, you know, we're dealing with just one parcel that might already be platted, then I think it's appropriate to have that conversation and put them into the development agreement. But in this case, because we actually have an ordinance that addresses that whole process separately, I don't think it's necessary to have those terms in here. It actually convolutes this agreement. The way it's structured right now, we would end up capturing the TIF that's created by the hotel and some of the increment that's going to be created by the associated development around it to repay this grant over a period of years. And they would receive funding in an amount equal to 36% of the construction cost of the hotel. So the way that it would work, we would have our financing set up. At this point, leaning towards that it would be with Farmers State Bank because we've worked with them on this. They're familiar with the concept and the agreement. We would only contribute our funds as invoices would be received from whatever financial institution they use to build the hotel. So they get a bill for $100,000. Whoever they're using, I'll just use a credit union for an example, their credit union releases a payment for $100,000, they invoice our bank for $36,000. That way we're only actually paying based on the actual construction costs of the hotel, because the $4.2 million is based off of estimated numbers. If they get good bids and the numbers come in low, we should see the benefit of that as well. So that's why it's structured the way that it is.
Do we have a cap on our payment?
Sorry, Joe, I didn't
Do we have a cap on our payment?
Yeah, $4.2 million is the maximum that we would provide.
Okay, thanks.
The hotel is anticipated all in to be at about an $11 to $11.8 million project.
Discussions on this?
What's your thought on how long it's going to take to recoup?
The projections that we had it at about 13 years.
I will say that I brought up the site plan issue Tuesday, and I will let everybody here know that I did meet with the developer to discuss that, and I'm okay with what they have proposed so far. So, just so you guys know.
Any other discussions on this then? All right. All those in favor of Resolution 26218 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Hess?
Okay, yes. This is resolution number 26219, setting a public hearing for August 3rd, at which it is proposed to approve a development agreement with Squaw Creek Crossing, LLC, including annual appropriation tax increment payments.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussions on this? This is the one you took off on Tuesday, wasn't it? Yeah.
Setting the public hearing?
Yeah, well, I thought he delayed one.
I think we went to a public hearing.
There was the possibility of delaying the public hearing for
That's
for,
okay, Tom.
Tower Terrace.
I don't think so.
No, this
We
is
didn't
one
even
of,
talk about this.
no, this is one of the three projects that was authorized under the Urban Renewal Plan Amendment that was discussed earlier. One of them being the development agreement with GLD for the hotel, which we just talked about. The second one being the commercial with GLD, which is not moving forward at this time. There will be something else in the future coming to you with that. And then the third, this is Squaw Creek Crossing, formerly the Water Rock, on 13 and 151.
Yeah, okay. I was just checking to see if you were listening, Tom.
You awake over there?
Okay, any other discussions then on 26219? Okay, all those in favor of Resolution 26219 signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Brandt.
Yes, Your Honor. I make a motion directing staff to draft a memorandum of understanding with Genesis Equities, LLC regarding tax increment financing incentives.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Which project are we talking about with this one?
This one is for a potential project on 3rd Avenue that would include leasable and contractor space. The incentives that the city is providing are tied to public safety. For example, in the case of this building, it would not be a code requirement that sprinklers be installed, but they presented us a budget that would allow for sprinklers to be installed, and the city would be helping to cover the cost of putting those in. Additionally, they've got a design that would allow for them them if one of their tenants would like to have a loading dock put in, to put that in, which is not present at most of our other properties around town that reach into this market. And so the agreement will have a provision that if they elect to do that, that they could qualify for up to 50% of the cost of doing that as additional rebates.
Okay.
I have a question. Between Genesis and Abode and Lexair, how much do they have in TIFs?
We'd have to look back through the urban renewal plan report to see.
Well, I just think it would be nice to know how much we're giving away every year.
The urban renewal plan report that the council approves and gets filed with the state every year has all the detail for all of the existing TIF agreements that we have.
I can't get through all those numbers, you know.
I think Wes has a spreadsheet that summarizes it pretty nicely, which we should be able to send out.
That would be good. Because I get questions as far as how much we're giving away every year.
Lon, would you say, though, that even though these payments are deferred, what's being paid is more than what we received on the lands before Genesis or Abode started developing them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that intrigued me about this one, and I think when the economic development team reviewed it, is that we have run into problems with the newer iterations of the fire code regarding uses in existing buildings of this style. So, for example, if you rent one of these, a contractor may start out using a pickup, and then they want to upgrade to a larger vehicle. Well, there's a break point at which once you exceed the gross vehicle weight rating, you can no longer store it in a building that doesn't have fire suppression. And they don't know it. We go out and catch it when the fire department does their annual inspections, and all of a sudden we have an issue. So here we have an opportunity to allow for sprinklers to be installed when the building is built, which makes it a lot more flexible, and it's a lot less expensive than going in and doing a retrofit later. In most cases, when we've looked at this, it's been applied to the uptown, but it's the same principle that you have here a developer who's willing to go beyond a code requirement, and it's something that's being done in the interests of public safety. Okay. And for anybody that thinks that that's not an issue, go down and look at what's left of Delaney Concrete's building, and you can see the impact that something like that could potentially have on a property.
Well, nobody's ever explained it that way, quite. Thank you.
Any other questions did you have something?
Well, the applicant is actually here, and she would like to give a short presentation to council if possible.
Oh. Or he.
It's all good. Chad Brandel, 4317 Quiltro Drive, Marion. So here's the site. Here's a proposed site plan right now, kind of giving you a little bit of context around what exactly the project is or what we're doing off 3rd Avenue. So basically what we're proposing is 2 buildings, roughly 11,000 square feet or just under. But I guess Lon summarized everything up really good, and it's all about growth, right? These are small, basically business incubators, so to speak. We can break these up into, 6 1,800 square foot units, or if I wanted to come in and rent half the building out, say 5,600 square feet, I could. But the analogy I'd like to do is, let's just say I have a sign shop right now, and right now all I'm doing is just making signs, fabricating signs, doing whatever. Okay, then the next evolution or the next growth vehicle I have is installation. Well, if I have a vehicle over 10,000 pounds, I need to have sprinkler system, or a building with a sprinkler system. But my lift that I have, my JLG, is going to weigh 15,000 pounds. I can't expand my business if I don't have those sprinkler systems. So right there, I'm capped. But yet, I may not be able to build a building that is 10,000 square feet, just because I'm small and I just haven't grown there yet. So, in a nutshell, that's basically what we're trying to provide, and we're trying to do it at a cost-sensitive price per square foot, because we're competing against other businesses that don't have sprinkler systems in. So it's a very price-sensitive market, and we want to be able to expand and offer the ability for any small business owner to start up a business and attract them to Marion too, because like Lon said, right now, Marion has nothing really to offer any small business with a dock or with sprinkler systems right now.
Very good. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Well, any other questions for Chad?
No, that's great.
All right, appreciate you coming up. Okay, questions from council on this?
I think it's pretty well answered.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion directing staff to draft this memorandum of understanding signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Your Honor, I move to approve Resolution 26-220, approving a Rotary District 5970 Community Grant Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Marion and the Rotary Club of Marion East Cedar Rapids regarding the pole clock project.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26220, approving a Rotary District 5970 Community Grant Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Marion and the Rotary Club of Marion East Cedar Rapids regarding pole clock project. And this, just as a reminder, this is the Rotary Club is applying for a grant to have, for funding to buy a decorative pole clock that would be placed somewhere in the city.
Now, who will make that determination as to the placement?
Who will make the determination?
That depends. And the reason I say that is because obviously the Rotary Club's going to want to have a significant role in that and has some ideas on where they would like to put it. But for example, if they wanted to put it on the library site, then they'd need to talk to the library board. If they want to put it in the park, they need to talk to the park board. So really kind of where they steer that is going to determine which group, or if they wanted to put it on City Hall grounds, that would come directly to City Council. So where they want to steer it towards will determine who makes that ultimate decision.
Okay.
I don't know. I might ask the two directors over there that if they get a request to put it on there in their areas, that maybe we just get a heads up for maybe some input, if that's possible.
I think they would, yeah. Go ahead.
If I could, Your Honor. As the city manager said, we would, if we wanted to entertain it within a park, that would go before the park board. I don't want to speak for the park board, but from the examples that Mr. Barnes brought forward, I'm sure that there would be a location that we would have within the park system that clock would fit in.
Further discussion? All those in favor of resolution number 26220, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Yes, Your Honor, resolution number 26221, approving City Hall IT remodel project in the amount of $25,927.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26221, approving the City Hall IT remodel project in the amount of $25,927. Discussion?
Just real quick, what was approved for in the budget for, what was the total amount for improvements to city facilities?
The budget has $200,000 allocated for improvements to city facilities. Now that includes more than just City Hall.
Right, yes, yeah. I just trying to remember what it was, and easier to ask you than look it up.
Okay. Other discussion? All those in favor of resolution number 26221, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Yes, Your Honor, this is resolution number 26202, approving a contract with Total Illuminations regarding retrofitting lighting at the Marion Police Department in an amount of $18,205.49. Rebate supply, and the Marion City Hall in the amount of $13,821. Rebate supplied.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26202, approving the contract with Total Illuminations regarding retrofitting lighting at the Marion Police Department in an amount of $18,205.49, and Marion City Hall in an amount of $13,800.21. Discussion.
Has what has been looked at will at least maintain or improve the lighting in all the locations that it's...
Yeah, they came in and did an analysis and looked at the level of lighting in different areas around there. And when you look, they actually provided a summary, literally fixture by fixture and location by location, with the intent of preserving the existing lighting levels. In some cases, they may be improved because, if you're putting in an LED fixture versus a neon or something like that, you may have a brighter white light, so you might get a little bit better net illumination. The big key is, I think the council understands from the presentation on Tuesday, is the operational cost savings that we're expected to realize. Between the two projects, we would expect to save over $8,000 per year on electric costs. The big surprise for me was the number we were looking at, because the police station is so new that you would think that the fixtures would be very efficient, and for the time they were, but I think it's just indicative of how quickly the technology has advanced.
And also the color, how they looked at make sure the color's right for like doing office type business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're geared specifically towards that. In some cases, I believe they're even actually replacing entire fixtures, because that's a better option than doing just a retrofit or changing bulbs.
Yeah, okay.
Other discussion? All those in favor of resolution number 26202, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Yes, Your Honor, this is a move to approve resolution 26211, supporting County Supervisor Presentation Plan Number 3 from single-member equal population districts, in which the electors of each district shall elect one member who must reside in that district for Lynn County special election to be held on August 1st of 2017.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26211, supporting County Supervisor Representation Plan Number 3 from single-member equal population districts, in which the electors of each district shall elect one member who must reside in that district for the Lynn County special election held August 1st, 2017. Discussion?
This is the best option for us.
Yeah, I think so.
Gives us a voice at the county. That's the big item.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Your Honor, I make a motion setting the August 1st, 2017 City Council meeting start time to 3 p.m. to allow staff and council to attend the National Night Out event.
Second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to set the August 1st, 2017 City Council meeting start time to 3 p.m. Discussion.
I would like to know what the National Night Out event is.
This is a request that came in from the Public Safety Department, so I think I'll ask Chief Crable to address it.
Yes, National Night Out, the police and fire departments host any of the citizens of Marion to come and join us, and we do games and activities and a lot of things with the citizens of Marion. It's to get to know each other, for your neighborhoods to come out and get to know your neighbors, promoting public safety and the neighborly neighborhoods.
So I saw a sign at the park up here, but is it in different areas? Or?
What we've done is, because it's so hard for us with Marion the size that it is, it's hard for us to get into every neighborhood. So what we've done is invite the neighborhoods to come to Thomas Park, and we host it there. And I think it's a great opportunity for the council and members of the staff to get to know the citizens of Marion also and join us. It's a fun time. It really is. We play a lot of games and get to know the kids, and we even have a fire department obstacle course, you can go through. So
Wear your tennis
we
shoes.
invite you. You get to know the canine dogs from the police department. It's a great event.
Free food?
Yes.
All right. Paul will be there.
I'll be there.
So-
I've ran the chief through an obstacle course before.
Yes, you have.
Other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Discussion?
Your Honor, I am very confused about something. Driving down Highway 100, and I saw a sign that said Roush Construction, and they had lots for sale. I thought that was Marion property that we spent $400,000 on.
We bought the road right-of-way through that, but there was a balance of property that was left after that that still remains with the Roushes.
Does the Condemnation Commission know that we only bought the road, not the whole property?
Yep.
And secondly, rumor has it that the Kirkwood building, which was purchased, was offered to the city of Marion for use as a library for $2.5 million. But nothing came before the council on that. Do we have any?
That's because that did not occur.
You mean it was not offered to the city?
No.
Well, one of the owners said it was.
Then they didn't talk to me. But I would say Ellsworth and I had conversations about it, just thinking about what is a plan B if the library project doesn't move forward. And that was before they apparently entered into a lease agreement with Limo Link to bring them down and locate them in that facility. But they never brought anything to me that was a proposal or anything like that. I've been in lots of meetings and had a lot of contact with John Dusek in particular because of the Armar Drive situation, and that was never something that was presented to me as an option.
Speaking of Limo Link, the reason I was for getting the airport was because A, the fuel tax, the federal fuel tax, B, that Limo Link was going to establish an office out there, and C, that Collins or Rockwell was going to build a space museum. Now, Limo Link is now moving into that Kirkwood building on a lease, as I understand, and we have to apply now for the federal gas tax, and I haven't seen anything as far as Rockwell is concerned. So maybe I should withdraw my approval.
Anything else, sir?
I'm good.
The thing that Rockwell was proposing was their museum. That's what was proposed out there. The museum director quit and moved to Maryland. So that put the kibosh on that for a while till the new director gets up on the speed. Well, I'm talking to him, but I attended the council and some of the city leaders, and they got invited out to the National Guard Armory today, and we got to see some of the hardware. I guess I didn't know what all they did, but basically they're an engineering and communications group, and so he said that they can go in and build things. They can build roads. They can build berms in case you wanted to fin. So I told them to come build a berm between us and Cedar Rapids, Paul.
Why not?
But anyway, the highlight of it is I got to fly in a CH-47F, which is the latest model.
Well, that was you doing that.
Yeah, that was me going across, yeah. And I didn't drop any frozen turkeys. Have you seen the WKRP issue where they... Yeah. But anyway, one of the things that I asked him about was, how do they get called out to an emergency? And basically it goes through the county emergency management person asks the state to, activate the guard, and then it comes back. And so if we ever have an emergency, that's how it would go. The mayor or someone would ask the emergency manager, that we need help, and then it would go up from there and then come back down. So I thought that was an interesting thing they pointed out. He said that in the recent flood, the last flood for Cedar Rapids, they had 400 guard members here. They barracked them out at out there by the airport. They just set up cots out in the middle of the big work area they have, and all the people that were here were out of this area, so they didn't get any of their local people, because they were probably dealing with their own home type issues. So they were all out in the other parts of the state. And then he said that they had been called to Dubuque and the Quad Cities down in that area for a few flood issues as well. But I think he said there's 5,000 guard members in Iowa, and most of those are part-time. They're weekend guard type people, but there's about 1,000, 1,500 that are full-time. And this guy that did the presentation was a full-time. He was a major. He's in charge of this group. But anyway, that was me waving at you when we went over today, because we went right over downtown here. So that's it.
Oh, yeah. In the essence of time, I do have a couple of things, and Will would say old minds think funny, but on Monday I was writing checks, and I wrote them out, and I noticed I kept writing 7/17/17, and I began to wonder what happened the last time we had 7/17/17. Well, I went back to 1917, and I found a few things that I thought were pretty interesting. World War I had started earlier in 14. The United States got involved in it in April, and the Selective Service started a lottery which drafted a lot of the young people across the nation. There were under 300 murders in the United States. I'm not talking Chicago, I mean the whole thing, 6% of the population had a high school diploma. New York had more cars for the first time than horses. A new car cost $400, a new home $5,000. Average wage 22 cents an hour. The first Boeing aircraft came off the production line in that year. First woman was elected to Congress. Lions Club was founded. The first food market was founded in Tennessee, which was a Piggly Wiggly in Nashville, Tennessee. Prior to that, we didn't have any. John F. Kennedy was born. J. Edgar Hoover got his first job with the Justice Department. Buffalo Bill died. Al Capone got cut in a knife fight. That's why they called him Scarface. The interesting thing was that King George of England found it necessary to change the surname. They had a surname very similar to German, and with the war going on, they were embarrassed by that name, so they changed it to Windsor. So they actually changed the name of all future monarchies in England because of the First World War. The United States Supreme Court upheld an 8-hour workday for railroads. And I'll get to Marion because that is what happened to our yards. We had our yards here, and when they set an 8-hour day, the railroads decided that they would divide each territory by 8-hour shifts. And Marion lost all of our train yards to Atkins. Had the Supreme Court not made that decision, which involved unions, we wouldn't have lost our train yards to the city of Atkins. I have a whole lot of other stuff, but I'll quit now, Mayor, so.
I have nothing to follow that. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Lon had something to address.
Yeah. And I know you like to end the meetings on a positive note, so I wish it
well,
wasn't something that I felt compelled to address, but it's something that I think I need to talk with the whole city council about. As the council knows, over the last couple of months, you conducted my evaluation process.
Yeah.
And there have been a couple of instances where confidential information from the closed session was leaked outside of that to individuals in Marion that are not elected nor affiliated with the Marion City Council. If I were not wired the way that I am, that does create legal liability on the part of the city. I think whatever council member did that needs to understand that it creates possible recourse for me as a cause of action against the city and as that person as an individual. As a broader issue than that, I think there's a couple of things that need to be considered when people ponder doing something like that. One is that it's a violation of the city's ethics policy for elected officials. Beyond that, it's a violation of that individual's oath of office, because when they sign the oath of office, they are declaring that they will uphold the laws of the state of Iowa and the ordinances of the city of Marion. And it's a legal violation. So if someone's loyalty to a group of individuals supersedes that of the law, I think that person really needs to take a hard look at themselves and say, is this really something that I should be doing? Beyond that, from an economic development standpoint, I just want to point out that companies are always looking for a reason to cross us off the list. And there are times when the city council gets privy to sensitive information that could be of use to a competitor or something like that. And they will always look for reasons, as I said, to cross us off the list. If a business doesn't have confidence in the ability of the city council to hold confidential information confidential, they'll cross us off the list. So it has a lot broader implications for the community than just doing something like that. Again, this is something that I didn't want to have to address, but I feel like if I don't, no one will. And it's just something that I think as elected officials, respect for the law, respect for the community needs to supersede loyalty to any one group or group of individuals. And I hope that that's what's represented, carried forward.
Okay. Questions on that? Okay, thank you. Now the meeting's adjourned.